following presentation is brought to you by the Alberta Podcast Network. Welcome to the Northern Nerdcast, the podcast that showcases the geeky, nerdy people, groups, and events in and around the city of Edmonton. Northern Nerdcast is a proud member of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB. Visit their website at albertapodcastnetwork.com. If you like the show, we invite you to share it on all of your social media platforms and help grow our community of geeky, nerdy people, groups, and events in and around the city of Edmonton. Would you like to be a contributor to the show? For more information, visit our website at northernnerdnetwork.com. And now, here's the host of the show, Dan Schessel.
All right, so welcome back, everyone out there listening to this show or watching the show, listening, whatever you would like to do. We welcome you all. We also love to welcome our wonderfulest of co-hosts, Chelsea Thompson. Say hello.
Hey, guys.
And also on today's show, we also have Kelsey. Can you say your last name? Because I don't want to butcher
it. Kelsey Barthel.
Barthel. All right, awesome. I don't ask people this beforehand. The guy.
Last names are the bane of Dan's existence.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna stop. I'm just gonna skip last names. So we got Kelsey, we got Chelsea. This is just gonna be a fun night. All right. Yes. And Aaron as well. So.
Yes, one of our longtime listeners, viewers, our most loyal of fans, who tunes in every week to add to the chat. Yeah. Hi, Aaron.
All right. So, yes, we have Chelsea here with us tonight. She is an author. You're currently living in Calgary, correct? In that area?
Are you talking to me or Chelsea?
Kelsey.
Kelsey.
I know where Chelsea lives.
Actually, I live in Edmonton right now.
Oh, you're living in Edmonton. It's even better. There we go. All right. So that's awesome. And we're going to talk a bit about your book, some of the stuff you've written, whatever else. But first off, we like to ask everybody who comes on our show, really, we like to get down to the soul of the person that we have on each, out of our guests here that we have on our show. And so we like to ask everybody who comes on our show, what's on their geek shelf. So Kelsey, man, I'm really tripping over my words today.
You're going to do that all night long.
Kelsey, what's on your geek shelf?
Well, one really thing that I hold in very high esteem that I have is a signed Futurama poster that's signed by the creator, the guy who does the voice of Fry, Morbo, what was the other ones? There was a bunch of different voice actors from there, and the creator all signed it. It was bought by my loving husband because he knows I absolutely adore that show. And it kind of just really encapsulates my love of adult cartoons like Rick and Morty and Archer and stuff like that.
Yes.
Futurama was such an amazing show.
Good.
I am here. Hang on 2 seconds. Look there. I am. There it is. Bang.
Yeah.
I'm moving myself around and everything. I'm telling you, this is. Yeah. Where did the thing go? No. There it is.
Yeah. One of my prized possessions.
Awesome.
I move over to the side. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
It's pretty great artwork of Zoidberg too.
It's one of the covers of like when they re-released the seasons on DVD.
Nice.
And they all had that kind of World's Fair kind of artwork going on with them.
Deco.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. Awesome. So that's fantastic. So I'm gonna go to Chelsea for right now and ask her. It's been a while since we chatted here, Chelsea.
Yeah.
You weren't on my show last week or on the show last week, so
yeah. No. Well, we were off because you had some family stuff that came along, and then it was Easter, and then I was on set last weekend, and Trina filled in for me. Thanks to Trina for doing that. Now I'm back, so yeah, it's been like I've been away 3 weeks. Yeah, something like that. So it's always nice.
The one week we didn't end up recording. My dad was pretty sick there in the hospital, so
So for good reason, we were away so that Dan could see his dad. And then Easter. I hope the Easter Bunny brought you chocolate.
The Easter Bunny brought my children a lot of chocolate, and I ate a lot of their chocolate.
Which you take a dad tax.
It's a very healthy dad tax. So I don't know how it is in other people's houses for Easter or for
you
any
buy
of
the
holidays.
Like you want to eat, and the Easter Bunny gives it to your kids.
Yeah,
and then you take a tax.
Well, okay, so I don't know if it's just kids these days, but I remember growing up when I was a kid, I ate all the chocolate, and it was gone long before the day was done. My kids don't do the same thing. I don't know what it is with these boys of mine. I don't know if I'm not raising them right or what the problem is here. But they end up with so much chocolate at the end of the day, and then it just sits on the counter for weeks. I'm sure it's still sitting on the counter at home. It's ridiculous.
What?
I know.
That's crazy.
It's very untypical child behavior.
I know. I'm like,
I mean, good parenting skills that they're eschewing chocolate. Good for you. But yeah.
They'll probably just end up being those people that that are like, I don't really like chocolate or sugar and stuff, and they're really skinny and everything, and then you're just like, shut up.
Who are these children of mine? I don't understand.
You're like, how'd this happen?
How did this happen?
Good thing you're there to pick up the chocolate eating.
Well, someone has to. I tell you, someone needs to eat the chocolate. It might as well be me.
You and Trina can have clandestine chocolate eating binges in the kitchen after the kids go to bed. You just go and take it off.
The kids ended up with, I think, 4 of those Lindt bunnies. They're really, I love Lindt chocolate. Oh, they're awesome. And they also ended up with a whole bunch of that like waxy, like milk chocolate, garbage chocolate as well. So stuff. I make them eat that one while I eat their bunny.
Yes, amazing.
They barely eat any of the chocolate anyways, so
it's because you take the good stuff.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is.
Yeah,
he says he loves the chocolate. He this is great. I'm like, okay, so I don't understand why you're not eating it.
They have expensive taste.
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad the Easter Bunny was good to you. I played the Easter Bunny in my house, and I brought everybody Lindt bunnies because that's what I like. So that's what everybody gets.
And
it was good.
The right way to do it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then I was on set a couple weekends. Actually, Easter weekend and last weekend, I was on set shooting, working on a student film. So yeah, it was lots of fun.
That's cool.
Yeah. Lots of fun. And what else? Today I was at fight class, which is always a good time, playing with swords. And and now that the children are back from spring break, I'm back at it picking up shifts with the school board. So yeah, lots of fun.
Cool.
How about you, Kelsey? How's your last week been?
It's been pretty good. I've been working hard on the sequel of my book, kind of trying to keep a stringent schedule to get it all done in my allotted timeline.
Nice.
Yeah.
cracking the whip on yourself.
Cracking the whip on myself.
Do you have anything you do, like when you meet your word quota for the day or when you finish a chapter? Do you have any like rituals of like, yes, okay, now I get to do this as like a little break or a little reward?
during the day, because right now I'm just doing the writing thing, taking a little break from the grind of the workforce. And every day I try and get my word count done before 3 o'clock, so I can watch The Simpsons from 4 to 3, or from 3 to 4.
Nice. That is an excellent motivator.
Yeah.
Aaron is asking if you're allowed to talk about Fight Class.
Why, yes, I am. It's not quite the same as Fight Club, so yes, I can talk about it. Thankfully, yeah. I won't have a hallucinated Brad Pitt come and beat the snot out of me for talking about it. So there's that.
That's awesome.
And how about you, Dan? How was your last week?
My last week has been definitely interesting.
Been away, right? You've been traveling, staying someplace else?
I am. Yeah, as you can tell, this is not the normal
room
attire that I don't know what you would call that. So yeah, no, I'm actually currently in Saskatchewan. That is as far away as I've ever been. No, I've been further than that. Why? So I'm actually in Lloydminster. I'm just like I think I can walk out the door and spit across the border right now. So yeah, I am currently technically in Saskatchewan. I'm working in Alberta at one of the refineries out here.
Okay.
And so it's just I took a little job out here. It's going to be a few weeks, and I figured I'd go and make some money.
So while you're there, are you going to get the picture of you in two places at once, straddling the border?
I could do that, but probably not. But I might just do it for you, Chelsea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now that you've mentioned it, I may just might send you a picture there.
Do cartwheels over the border.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's been interesting. My car, I don't know why it decides to do this on me, but it keeps changing the hour on me every time I go across the border.
Skynet is activating.
It's well, and the silly thing is, right now Saskatchewan's on the same time as us.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think it's because my car is going off of U.S. time.
Oh, and Central changes down in the States.
Yeah, and Central changes down in the States. And so, yeah, it's kind of, it's really annoying because I get in my car and I'm like, oh no, I'm not late. I'm fine. I'm okay. It's
You're like, I don't know what the car's talking about.
Yeah. And then 3 seconds later, I look at the clock and go, oh no! Oh jeez.
Like this, I bought a alarm clock once that automatically would change the hour for daylight savings because I always had a problem with that. And it was set to do it on the proper day, but then that was the year that the stupid Alberta government decided to change when daylight savings times happened. So then my clock would just jump ahead at one time, and then later on I'd have to
go back and change it anyway.
I'd have to fix it, and then it would change again. I'm just like, oh, I hate you. Why do we have this
technology?
Well, and that's the debate now of whether daylight savings time is still useful or beneficial at all, and if we should just get rid of it altogether.
Just get rid of it.
It's my arch enemy.
It's brutal.
My life.
If you have children, it's like the worst thing in the world because they don't abide by daylight savings time.
Well, I mean, the fall back in the fall is always lovely because you're like, yeah, time travel, extra hour. I get to redo this hour all over again. Woo! I'm a time traveler.
Once again, my children don't abide by daylight savings time. So instead of them waking up at 7 o'clock in the morning, they now wake up 6.
Gross.
Yeah, it's awful.
Well, you know what we need to distract us from the grossness of daylight savings time? How about an ad about the Edmonton Community Foundation?
I think we can do that. Hang on 2 seconds, and I will I'll cue you up.
So the Northern Nerdcast is brought to you in part by the Edmonton Community Foundation. The Edmonton Community Foundation is a great way to put your money to work directly for the charities that matter to you. The Edmonton Community Foundation will work with you to set up an endowment fund in your name. You take the money from your fund, plus any additional money earned by the fund, and donate it to whatever charity or charities you pick. Now, you don't have to be rich to set up a fund. The ECF will work with you to put any donation amount you want to work in your fund. You can also get a group of people together to set up a fund to give to a charity as a collective. The ECF also has an awesome podcast, the Well Endowed Podcast. That's one of our fellow members on the Alberta Podcast Network. The podcast is chatting with the Honourable Anne McClellan, chair of the task force on cannabis legalization. So be sure to tune in and check it out to learn all about the possible benefits and challenges of legalizing cannabis and why Ms. McClellan feels this legislation is a transformative moment in Canadian history. To learn more about the Edmonton Community Foundation, check out their website, ecfoundation.org, or if you want to listen to the Well Endowed Podcast, head on over to wellendowedpodcast.com or find them on your podcast player of choice. I love my ad music. It makes me so happy.
It is pretty happy music.
Yep. It reminds me of like a distant cousin of like the Austin Powers music, which I think is why it makes me so happy.
You do the whole 60s dance to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Exactly.
All right. So today on the episode, we do have Kelsey Barthel, who is an author of the book Beyond the Code. And so we are going to talk a little bit about Beyond the Code, I guess. And so have you written other books before? I'm going to ask you that right away.
No, this is my first novel.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good book to have for your first novel, eh?
Yeah. Thanks.
So we're going to talk a little bit about that as we continue on here. So first off, I'm going to let Chelsea just quickly take it because she loves to ask her awesome questions.
Yeah. So, let's see. What do I want to know first? So you said I'm actually going to follow up a bit on something that we chatted about how your week was going. So you're working on the follow-up already. That's exciting. I am. So book number 2. So without giving away spoilers or plot too much, when book number 2 is done, do you see this as like a longer series? Are there book number 3, 4, 5, et cetera, coming down the line that you have ruminating in your brain?
I have a kind of a set of what's going to happen in the series. I don't know quite how long it's going to take to write all of it, but I have the number, for some reason I have the thought of 5 books in my head.
Nice.
I just have a feeling that it's going to turn out that way.
That's always good.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm sure when you're creating a great story and great characters from a reader's perspective, having more to go on and more to go back to is always nice. So, I mean, I'm going to go back to one of my staple questions now, I guess, because I'm a sucker for origin stories. Mm-hmm. So have you always been a writer? Where did the impetus to write come from? And where did the kernel of the idea for your first book, how did that flicker into being?
Well, I grew up in this super tiny town called Hay Lakes. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's super tiny, small village on the road. Blink if you miss it. Mm-hmm. So growing up there wasn't really a lot to do. But my parents were able to splurge for cable, and I also really got into anime and shows like that at a young age. And so there was a lot of inspiration there. And one of my big hobbies growing up was writing short stories, just about different characters and different fantasy settings and stuff like that. And it wasn't until I moved out of the town and moved to the city that really came out of my shell and got enough story to make a full novel and a full series. And the initial kernel of inspiration, like the very, very basic spot of inspiration, came from this crescent moon necklace I bought, which I thought of a character, and then I thought of like a setting. And another kind of quirky thing I did was to help come up with some of the other characters there. I told my friends each to pick a superpower and a fighting style. And from there, I was able to make some of the characters that are in the book.
Awesome.
Wow.
That's so cool.
So let me jump to the sort of the question, because this is your first book. What would you say to other people who are wanting to start their first book, that are kind of on that fence of like, oh man, should I do this? Is it something I should to do? Like, what would you say to people who are kind of just looking to get into to writing themselves?
One really, really big advice I would give them is don't be afraid of constructive criticism. Always try and listen. Like, even if somebody seems like they're just taking your work apart, try and understand what they have to say and try and see where they're coming from, because you can always benefit from that. And no matter how good you think your work is, it can always be better.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to go back for a second and talk a little bit more about the beginnings of your writings with your short stories in childhood. Do you recall, or can you remember the very first time you ever wrote a short story, or what it was about, or when you started writing?
That was when I was pretty young. I think I was like around 11 or 12, and I was really into like looking at books about like old fairy mythos and stuff like that. And I wrote a little short story about this young girl who like finds out that fairies are real and like has different interactions with them. It's kind of like, now that I look back on it, it's kind of like How to Train Your Dragon, but with fairies.
That's so awesome. And so now, I mean, as a writer, are there other authors whose stuff you just read voraciously, that you really like their style, or potentially draw inspiration from other series or works that you've read, or other authors that you really look up to?
Considering my book is like of an urban fantasy setting, one author that I really mostly just enjoy reading his works because of the kind of personal touches he puts onto it is Jim Butcher. I don't know if you've ever read the Dresden Files.
I haven't read them, but I'm familiar with the series. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just super fun to read because it kind of gives you like the first person perspective, so you see a lot of the characters' quirks and stuff in it, and that made him like really enjoyable to read. And it also reading his stuff he does a very good job of building like world building in an urban fantasy setting.
Nice.
So let's kind of get a little bit more into your book here, and can you tell people just a little bit about what to kind of expect when they go into start reading this book?
One thing that I've gotten a lot of really good compliments on for the book is the second to second fast-paced fight scenes. I've gotten a lot of compliments on really going in depth on every move in a fight scene that makes it really interesting to read, which like a lot of other books they kind of gloss over that. But growing up, I also watched a lot. Like I watched a lot of anime, as I say, and I watched a lot of martial arts movies. And I know that kind of second to second, like kind of a choreography makes them interesting to read. And I've also gotten a lot of compliments on it. And also, if you really like the superhero genre, but you don't necessarily like them just going around and fighting crime and all that, this puts the superhero genre into a more kind of realistic motivations, where they're not fighting crime or anything like that. They're just fighting in this shadow war to help the people within their society and like fight against the tyranny that they're experiencing.
Grounds it more in personal human motivation.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
So, what prompted you in the first place to even start writing this particular book?
Well, like I really liked the superhero genre. Like, my sister, who is 12 years older than me, lived out in Edmonton around the White Ave area, so she was hung out in a lot of comic book stores and stuff like that. So she had this huge collection of all like the X-Men comics, all the different X-Men comics, like X-Men, X-Force, Excalibur.
Mm-hmm.
And when she moved back home, I was able to read them all, and it really got me into the whole superhero genre. And I do like that idea of having like a special ability that like makes kind of like a kind of a different identity. So, and I also really like urban fantasy and writing into that kind of shadow war kind of thing. So I just kind of combined the different things that I like and had experience reading about.
Nice. So I want to ask about some of the challenges or struggles maybe that you happen. I have a couple other friends who are writers, and how sometimes the process can be daunting, right? So did you ever find, what were some of the things that you came up against or hard days that you had? Were there ever moments where you just like, oh, maybe I should just put this in a drawer and not do it? Or, talk about that for a little bit.
One of the hardest things that it's good to do, because they're in the basically with any authors, with any writers, you have like the plotters and the planners. And like some people are just able to like sit at their desk and just keep writing and see where it goes, and they're just able to be more freeform than that. And I am not that at all, because I have a crippling fear of accidentally writing in plot holes. So everything that I write has to be carefully planned out, like to like all the dialogue and every different scene and everything. And that can be very daunting because it takes a long time. So it really adds in a lot of time. That's why writing my first book took so much time. It's because I had to plan out everything ahead of time before I would even write anything.
So now that you're on to the second one and you've solidified your world and your characters, and you have a whole novel under your belt of them bantering around inside your head. Are you finding writing the second one, I won't necessarily say easier, because every time you write, I'm sure there are challenges that come up, but that you're ticking along at a like more even pace? Are you finding that?
I would say so, because before I wrote the first one, I kind of planned out all the events I wanted to happen in the series, and because that's what it took a long time before I even started writing the first book. And after that, I just took the events that I wanted in the second book and planned them out and started writing it. So it was just not creating what's all going to happen, because I already knew it was going to happen. So I just picked what I wanted in the second book and started going.
So now, do you find, even though this sort of is the current world and characters that you're inhabiting and working on and working your way through this series, do you find that you get sparks of inspiration for other worlds or other characters, even when you're focusing on one that you're like, oh, I should jot that down and file that away for something else to work on after all this is done?
Oh, all the time. I have on my computer a Word document of just bullet points on different story ideas, which I call my story vault. And every time I come up with something new that I would like to write, I put it in the story vault and leave it alone for now. Or like I write out all the things that I'm thinking about it, and then I just put it away for now because I need to focus on this. But there's like probably like 13 different stories in there, different story ideas in there.
So now, through all your planning and plotting, when you actually sat down to write the first book, did you ever have experiences? You know, a couple other friends of mine who are writers have said that they've had experiences where they've thought and planned and plotted and sat down to write it, and as they were writing, it was kind of like the world and the characters were like, no, that's not what's happening. We're totally going to do something completely different.
Not quite to that extent, but I did have experiences when I wrote out the first book, and then I was able to wrangle some beta readers to test it out for me, and they found some kind of plot holes, or not really plot holes, but like things that they didn't really like about it, and so it really made me reassess what they should do, and it actually turned out for the better because I changed something that started off something that led into the next book.
Nice.
Yeah.
Did you how much of a challenge was the editing process for the first book? You know, the feelings of like, oh my God, this is my baby. What was editing the first book like for you?
It was very time consuming. It's very time consuming, but it was actually pretty good because I was able I felt like I was making it better. I didn't really have too much attachment to some of the things. There were some things that I'm just like, I don't really want to change that. But those were just like kind of little things like in the dialogue and in some of the mannerisms of the characters that I didn't really want to change. So I kept them in there. But overall, some of the, especially from the beta reader, some of the editing stuff was just mostly plot point. And it really helped it out being better for that.
So without giving away too many spoilers or anything, can you talk a little bit about the characters and the world that you've created, and maybe sort of a rundown of the plot a little bit? What happens? Give us the dust jacket blurb. Grab the reader's attention. What can we expect when we pick up this novel?
Well, this novel it follows the main character, Luna. She is to the mundane world, she's a heiress to a very wealthy family. But there is this other world where there's an organization of people with extraordinary abilities that have been passed on through their family over the years, and each one of them is sworn to service to another family, and there's two family the families are connected through generations. And Luna is she follows her master Cole Ivor, and together at the beginning of the book it follows them trying to take down another master who is using her power and influence and her knights to basically make a power grab for getting more knights and getting more people under their wing, or destroying the people in the way. And they're trying to gain up evidence to take that to the ruling power of these people, which is called the Hand Council. But when they get a little too close to it, Damon calls for one of her knights to assassinate Cole Ivor, her master, and she catches them in the act, and this ends up starting a link of events that has her searching for revenge and going down a dark path, but then being led off of it by the person who the Hand Council sent to kill her. And it starts her thinking that the system isn't right and it's taking advantage of the people who have no choice in the matter. So it starts them trying to take down the system that has them like serving without a choice.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I mean, the plot certainly sounds exciting and fast-paced and engaging. And Dan sent me a link to a couple of reviews. There's one on Literary Titan where it talks about your action and how action-packed the book is and how great the fight sequences are. So, as someone who's a sword nerd, it makes me very excited to see a novel with like awesome fight sequences written in it.
I hope you like it.
So I got a question. Like when you're writing those fight sequences, how did you work it out in your head? And how were you able to put those like? How are you able to put such a wonderful word picture in the book for fight sequences? Because I find that when I'm reading a fight in a book, it is more often than not just so fast and it's so quick and it's just like it's awful in most times, right?
Yeah, you have to make it like you have to make it like I said with some ones they just kind of gloss over a lot of it, but I try and think out the whole thing, like plan it out from move to move, but you also have to try and make it interesting, so you can't just have the same moves over and over. You have to think of how they would move into this and think of how they would counter and like kind of get specific, but not too wordy. And it was kind of funny because one of the books that I read about writing science fiction and fantasy did a little thing about action sequences, and they're like, if you ever find yourself wondering what to do to make this interesting, just think like, what would Jay-Z do? As in, what would Jackie Chan do? It's like that's a way to like just really make your fight scenes a lot more dynamic and interesting and just off the wall.
That's awesome. All right. Do you have anything else there, Chelsea?
Well, I mean, no pressure or anything, but writing of the second novel, so fans who have picked up the first one and have read it and are chomping at the bit to get more of the world, do you have a timeline in mind? Is there a goal that you have for yourself for when you want the second one released? What are you working towards with that?
I'm working towards trying to have it done and at least in the publishing system 18 months after the first book came out.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's a good window. That's not it's just long enough to get people like salivating and like get that itch, but not too long that they're like, oh. Nice.
Yeah, you don't want them to forget about the book.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's enough so like I heard that after that people kind of lose momentum of it, so that's why I'm trying to keep it in there.
Nice.
In that window.
Well, kudos to you because that's a big challenge to keep up that timeline. So
yeah.
Can I ask how long did it take you to do the first book?
The first book took me about considering I was doing all the planning and everything beforehand. Yeah. It took me about 4 years to finish.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So
it's a lot easier now.
It's a lot easier. Well, again, you said you've already planned out a lot of this stuff already in advance, right? So
yeah,
that's you've done a lot of the legwork for that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm almost to the halfway point of the first draft as the second one.
Nice.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
We'll come back and we'll get all of that fun information where people can find book number 1, Beyond the Code, where they can find you, all of that good stuff, right after I think Dan has another fun ad for us.
Yes. All right. So, the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB, is a proud sponsor of this year's Pod Summit, Western Canada's podcast conference. Join us May 5th at CKUA in Edmonton for a day of learning and connection making. Plus some amazing giveaways. I know some of the giveaways that they're giving away. They have, let me just pull this up here in 2 seconds. They're giving away MV5 condenser microphone, an MV51 condenser microphone. These are like the USB ones. These are really nice Shure microphones. And they're giving away the SM7B, which is like the granddaddy of all like mics. I'm like salivating over this microphone. I'm telling you, I want one.
You're gonna go just for the door prizes.
I'm very much into this this idea of going to this thing. The giveaways are impressive. So if you have a podcast, you will learn to make it sound amazing, grow your audience, and create a show for your listeners. Your listeners will love. And if you don't have a podcast, you will learn how to start one, and we'll be happy to welcome you to the community. Tickets are just $150, and they're limited, so don't delay. Get yours at podcastsummit.com.
Sweet. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Are you gonna go?
I want to. I don't know if I will be home. Yeah. Got a little bit more time. I have to be out of town here, so.
Sounds like a job for the producer then. If you're away, Trina should go.
I think I might have to send her just so that she can get her name in for that microphone.
So that she can win the microphone.
I'm telling you, it's one of the best condenser mics. Aaron says he listened to a podcast once.
Yeah, once. We're not very good. I mean, Aaron, you do us a favor by keeping us alive. We podcast every week for Aaron. So thanks, Aaron.
Yeah. All right. So I don't know who that is. Yeah. So we're going to take a little bit of a moment here, and we're going to talk about some of the other upcoming events that are happening in and around the city of Edmonton. And the first one I'd like to mention is, oh, hang on. Where did it go? Is that Calgary Expo is coming up right away here. It is coming up. Was it next weekend or the weekend after?
I don't know.
Why did
I think it's next weekend.
Yeah, I think it's next weekend.
I think it's the 23rd.
It is.
I don't think it's
slowly coming up. It's the 26th to 29th. But I want to make mention of one thing during the Calgary Expo on the 29th. Over at the Scotiabank Saddle Dome, all the cosplayers will meet, and they will do their big cosplay photo shoot. So if you are there, you're in cosplay, you got a costume, come on out. It's going to be a fantastic time. All the cosplayers are going to be there. I'm going to do my darndest to get to this Calgary Expo. I am working as best I can to make sure that I get down there. So hopefully I'll be there. Trina will definitely be there. So at least someone's going to be there for sure. On May the 4th, we have Star Wars Day coming up. I don't know why I said that. With you. There's nothing else I have there for Star Wars Day.
Well, no, it's good to let people know that it's coming up, and then they can celebrate in their own way.
It is true. Actually, you know what? There is something happening over at the Redwater Public Library. So if you're in Redwater and you want to go and celebrate May the 4th, go to the library. in Redwater. Also, there is
Have a duel.
To which?
Oh, I said pull out your lightsabers and have a duel.
That's right.
That's
May the 5th, we have Free Comic Book Day. And that is going to be happening at your local comic book store. So go support your local comic book store. It's going to be awesome. And then we're going to move on into June. We got June 15 and 16. We got Pure Spec. We have our wonderful author here. And Pure Spec is about
science fiction, fantasy fiction.
Exactly.
All that good stuff. It is a literary lovers
conference.
Expo. Yeah.
It's a great little convention that's here in Edmonton, and that is happening on June 15 and 16 at the Alberta Avenue Community Hall.
And so, actually, Kelsey, if you are in town, I would recommend contacting the organizers of Pure Spec, because they love having local authors in to have a booth and talk about their book. And
I should totally do that.
Potentially sell copies of them.
Yeah.
So check it out.
I will.
It's always it's a great conference.
Expo. Yeah.
Expo,
great.
You like to call them.
Great little one. Good size.
Yeah. Lots of awesome people there.
Should be good for networking.
It's great for networking.
Yeah.
And that is all I got. Thanks, Kelsey, so much for coming on our show. Can you tell us where we can find you, where you can find your book, all that kind of fun stuff?
You can find my book on basically all the Amazons, all Amazon.ca, .com, the one for the UK, and you can find it on Indigo, on Indigo shelves in some stores.
Woohoo!
That was a super great when I found that. And you have Barnes and Noble, and on the home base of inkshares.com. And you can find me on Facebook. It's Kelsey Barthel, and follow my Beyond the Code page. And you can also follow me on Twitter at BTC Inkshares.
Nice.
Yeah. And I will also be in Calgary for the Owl's Nest Taste of Local Authors night on May 10th. Yeah, and I'll be at the When Worlds Collide convention in Calgary in August. I can't quite remember the exact date, but I'll be there signing books for a little bit of that.
Awesome. Anything else?
And I'll be I'll post my schedule for this, but I'll be in Indigo Coles and Indigo and Coles shops around Edmonton throughout different parts of the summer.
Awesome.
Doing signings and awesome.
Yeah. All right. So if you want to go and check out her book and get it signed, go check that out.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Great. Thank you so much for coming on our show. Thank you, Chelsea, for coming out once again. And I want to thank all the wonderful listeners out there. You guys are the best, and I will see you guys on the next one.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Northern Nerdcast. Northern Nerdcast is a proud member of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB. Check out their website at albertapodcastnetwork.com. For all things geeky and nerdy, including all of our social media platforms, go to northernnerdnetwork.com. Thanks again. We appreciate your support.